Hi, I'm Wade Kingsley, and welcome to the Creative Coach podcast. This is the first edition. Thanks for coming along to have a listen. If you're here, it means either A, you know me and you're supporting me, which I really appreciate, or B, maybe you're interested in improving your creativity, even if you can't really define what that means or what you'd want to do with it. Well, across the journey of this podcast, every single week, we're going to show you ways that you can unlock your creative potential. Because believe it or not, everyone is creative. Now, I know some people grow up thinking that they're not creative, and maybe even now you think you're not creative. But the reality is we all are, and it's how we deploy that creativity and how we unlock that creative potential. So, all across these episodes, which will be weekly, I'm going to share stories, examples, experience of mine in coaching some really creative people myself, and also look at some of the stories behind the scenes, how really, really famous people who you may know from different spheres, not just arts, music, entertainment, or the normal creative spaces, but also business, science, sport, lots of other areas who actually deploy creative thinking on a regular basis and try and understand what they do. Because I'm a firm believer that, like any exercise, creative problem solving is something that you can get better at and you can learn. But we call it problem solving because even if you want to write a novel, well, the problem you're solving for your audience is to entertain them. They're bored and they want to do something. And you might think crafting a really great story is a way to do it. If you want to write a song or perform on some sort of instrument, well, that's the same principle. Is the problem you're solving is to try and entertain people and make them feel good or make them relate to what it's like to fall in love or break up with a boyfriend if it's a Taylor Swift album. I'm a Swiftie. Don't come at me, Swifties. I'm a Swiftie too. So there's lots of different ways you can deploy your creativity. And what I hope happens over this coming series of podcasts is you actually get to know me and get to know how I can help you, but also you feel like you can start to unlock that creative potential that's inside you for whatever reason you like. So for this first episode, I thought I'd just get to know you a bit and you can get to know me. Now, obviously, a podcast is a little bit of a one-way conversation. So you're going to hear a little bit more from me. But if at any time you want to email and introduce yourself to me, please do. My email is wade@thecreativecoach.com. That's WADE at thecreativecoach.com. Okay, so why am I interested in creativity? Well, I think I was interested in creativity from a very early age. I was always playing make-believe and using my imagination as a kid, as most of us did. I usually started things like radio stations in my bedroom. I also would start little mini shops and businesses at home, and I would get into marketing and branding of those things. I started a school radio station when I was in high school, and I already knew that the creative bug was inside me. But one thing that I had really early was the confidence to deploy it. Because as kids, we are innately creative. We're actually creating things all the time. We're drawing pictures, we're putting puzzles together, we're doing things with paint and Play-Doh and clay and Lego and all sorts. And we're really creative people. But I was lucky. I really had supportive parents and family who encouraged my creativity and helped me get really confident with it. Brene Brown, the psychologist and sociologist, has some really good, interesting intel about creativity. She says that everyone has a creative scar. And a creative scar is where someone told you in your childhood, yes, yours, that you either are creative or you're not. Now, the challenge is they're not entitled to judge you for that. That's not you. Their way to say you are creative or not is not correct. Basically, you are creative. And what happens though is you tend to believe it. So if someone tells you you're creative, if you're lucky enough to get that, then you believe that and go along with it and you start to deploy that creativity as you get into your teenage years and hopefully beyond. However, if someone anywhere along the journey told you you're not creative and maybe you should stick to math or science or something, which is rubbish, of course, because there's lots of creativity in those subjects, is that maybe you started to believe that you weren't creative and that scar has been able to take hold on your creative ability as time has gone on. Well, part of the things we're going to do across our sessions is show you how to either build a callus over that scar to continue the metaphor, or try and unlock ways that maybe you haven't thought about your creativity before. And one of the exercises I'm going to get you to do at the end of this episode is actually about just giving yourself some recognition for the creative acts that you do every single day. So after school, I spent a fair bit of time of my career in the media and the marketing and advertising spaces, which are no doubt full of very, very creative people. But one thing I realized in my journey there was I was actually really good at coaching people. I actually had a bit of a knack for helping people be the most creative self. I wasn't the one who was the frontline idea generator, although I've certainly done lots of that. I was the person behind the scenes that would help them be better at their creativity. So over the last 25 years, I know I don't look or sound that old, thank you. I have actually done a great job, I think, of helping really creative people get their work out into the world. So now I really want to help you. Now, my style is a coaching style, very personal, very one-to-one. So hopefully, wherever you're listening to this, in the car, public transport, maybe you're out for a walk, or maybe just on your speaker at home or through some headphones, I hope you feel like I'm talking to you, because right now I am. It's just you and me having this conversation. And I want you to feel like any other coaching environment where I'll be supportive. I can show you ways that you can help your own creativity, but also I'm going to be challenging you. I'm going to give you things to do that you might feel a little bit uncomfortable with at first, but it's designed to help you grow. And I'm figuring if you've made it this far into the podcast, then you're happy to go along with that. So let me leave you with something off this first episode to do, because next week we're going to start getting into some really great stories of creative champions and helping you understand some of the exercises and the workouts they do, the actual mental workouts to get their creativity going. This first exercise is a really easy one. I want you to recognize the everyday acts of creativity that you do right now. Now, you might think, well, I didn't paint anything today, or I didn't write a song or play an instrument. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that today, already, no matter what time you're listening to this, is you have deployed some acts of creativity. And here's how you spot them. So let's say a non-creative act is something where you're simply following instructions. So let's say you're cooking and you follow the recipe and you do not change a thing about that recipe. You just get it absolute ingredient for ingredient, measurement for a measurement is exactly the same. At that point, you're executing someone else's creativity, whoever created the recipe. But this is what I want you to do. If you change one thing, change one ingredient, then that's a creative act. That's a creative decision. If you are driving to work this morning or today and you are going to take a left turn where normally you take a right, that's actually a creative decision. There's no instruction. Maybe you're following a sat nav or a map and it tells you to. But if you're making a decision that's not an instruction, then that's a creative act. If you put on clothes today and you pulled them out of the wardrobe and decided that this goes with that or whatever it is and you're not wearing a uniform, that's a creative decision. So there are creative decisions being made every single day. It usually happens when you open your phone and post something to social media. Maybe you're writing something on the computer or typing something or doing anything that's not an absolute line by line, item by item instruction. That's a creative act. So by the time we get together next week on our next episode, I want you to have thought at least 3 creative acts you've undertaken across the week. I know you're going to do a lot more than that, but I want you to be able to recognize them because I'm going to ask you next time to have a think about what those 3 are. In the meantime, if you'd like to reach out and introduce yourself, please do. Wade@thecreativecoach.com, or you can contact me through the socials. So you'll find me at The Creative Coach on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, where else? Snapchat, maybe, everywhere. Twitter, X, whatever it's called. And I hope we can keep this relationship going where I help you unlock your creative potential every single week. Also, just to keep you interested and get to the end of every episode, something weird's going to happen. Like for this week, I'm going to put on a wig. Oh, you can't probably see it if you're just listening to this, but if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll see it. There's a very good reason why I'm going to do this at the end of episode every week. And it's not just to keep you watching or listening. It's going to prove a point about creativity. So I'm going to tell you what the answer is in our next episode. Thanks for joining me on this very first episode of the Creative Coach podcast. Looking forward to working with you as the creative coach. And I want you to say this out loud now, even if it's out loud in your head, but just to yourself, say it out loud. I am creative. That was up to you. Over you go. I am creative. I'll see you next week.